Hello, everyone. I'm Tom Baker, and you are watching The Tom Baker Show. We appreciate you joining us wherever you're tuning us in from. We're happy to have you. This is going to be a very full show tonight. As you can see, we are a team of three here, and excited to have not only my normal co-host, Jacob Seelman, the editor of SWN, who is producing this show as always. Also excited to have for the first time ever on this show one of our young journalists that has joined us, and a college student at Virginia Tech University. Thomas Hughes is with us. Thomas has been working really hard to follow the Formula One and IndyCar series, plural. And we're going to talk, we got a lot to talk about with those two series with him tonight. But as always here on the Tom Baker Show, we start with the SWN Power Performance Award. And this is where I toss off to Jacob. And holy cow, I am really having a hard time with these four candidates, because honestly, I feel like we can flip a coin. But Jacob, I'll let you describe who they are.
Oh boy, I thought you were going to say holy short track, but I guess that's my line this week, because for the second Power Performance Award in a row, we are all short track on this show, and I love it.
Me too.
So your four nominees for this week are, as expected, your King's Royal winner gets an automatic nod, because you don't just win $200,000 and not get a nod, but the way Anthony Macri did it, and now that he's won 5 of his 10 races since coming back from a back injury at the end of May. I mean, good Lord, this guy is ridiculous, or end of April, I should say. So Macri gets the nod. 8 wins in 24 starts overall. That's 1 in 3 for those counting. You've got Jonathan Davenport, who normally we would never celebrate finishing second at the expense of a win, but when you finish second in the Silver Dollar Nationals at the Kaziski family promoted Shelby County Raceway and earn more for finishing second than you do for winning the race, to me, A, that gets a nod, but B, the way Davenport did it in basically making passes late that on a track that had no groove to make passes on, he just kind of willed his way forward to second. JD, they call him the Fast 49, always a threat, gets a nod in this case even though he didn't win. Then you've got a guy who won a lot. In fact, this guy, the first since, I believe, the late Kevin Gobrecht, Tom, to win 3 major sprint car features in a 24-hour same-day period. Yes. Ryan Timms swept the 360 and 410 sprint car features at Knoxville Raceway in Iowa that got pushed to after midnight. This was supposed to be Saturday night. It ended up being the early hours of Sunday morning, and then went to Houston Speedway later that night and won again in the 410 class for good measure. 3 feature wins in a span of about 22 hours worth, to bank more than $30,000. More on him in a minute from me. And then you've got Caden Honeycutt, who for the second time this year won 2 features in one day with the Cars Tour, swept the Pro Late Model and Late Model stock races at North Wilkesboro Speedway. Nobody had ever done that before this year, period. Caden's now done it twice. So, Tom, you said you're having trouble with this. Where and why are you having trouble with this?
Well, I'm having trouble with it because all 4 of these candidates really deserve this award this week. I mean, you know, Davenport, yes, second place. It isn't always about winning. What Jonathan did was phenomenal. Anthony Macri, obviously, winning the King's Royal at Eldora, and, you know, only the second driver to go back-to-back. And then you got Ryan Timms, who thinks he's Caden Honeycutt, winning all these races in a day, right?
Yes.
And, you know, and then you got Caden Honeycutt doing that once again, the daily double, so to speak. And I'm really having a hard time with this, but I'll tell you where I'm going, and then I'll tell you why. I'm going straight to Ryan Timms. The reason I'm going to do that is because he won both the 360 and the 410 features, and I watched a good bit of that action after Kings Royal was over because they were also on a rain delay and ended up being a later start than Kings Royal did. So turned it over to Knoxville and watched it. And, you know, Ryan is just a phenomenal young racer. That kid is a star of the future. I just like what he did. I like the way that he did it. And I am going to pick Ryan Timms. Jacob, do you agree?
You know, on a show where you and I have disagreed so much here of late, shocking, I actually am going to agree with you for once.
My goodness.
Right? I know. And actually, I'm going to say, and it's very rare that we do this on this show, but this is going to be one where I'm going to look at the fan vote and go ballyhoo on it, because 58% of the fan vote went with Anthony Macri compared to about 40% for Ryan Timms. But my argument is money doesn't always tell the tale. And yes, I understand Anthony's coming back from injury and he's doing a lot of awesome things. But when you do something that hasn't been done since Kevin Gobrecht, whose career was tragically cut short, before it could become what I think would have been one of the greatest sprint car careers of the millennium, he had so much talent. For Ryan Timms to do that, to me, is an automatic vault you right to the top. Okay, sweeping two features at Knoxville's one thing, but to go to Houston's totally different track, even though some drivers say it races the same, and go, yeah, I'll just win again. Why not? To me, that was what put it over the top. So yes, you and I are in agreement on this. Ryan Timms. And I also vote that just this once we overthrow the fan vote, because gosh darn, when you put yourself in the same category as Kevin Gobrecht, and before Kevin Gobrecht, Mario Andretti, that's a class you don't just ignore. I'm sorry.
Well, you know, and here's the other thing. I mean, it's easy to go to Macri, and I think a lot of what happens sometimes with the fans is it's the biggest name, right? So it's the Kings Royal. So Anthony Macri, you know, they aren't quite as familiar with Ryan Timms, so they sort of minimize that accomplishment. But it's hard to win one 360 sprint car race at a national level, let alone winning 360 and 410 in the same day. And, you know, and that being the third in the string, I think Ryan Timms definitely deserves this award. So that's the way we'll go, and we will thank the fans for their for their input as always, and we look forward to next week with the SWM Power Performance Award.
Absolutely. And now it gets fun, because now not only do we get to introduce Thomas as our resident SWN IndyCar and open wheel guy, but I also get to say that I had the pleasure this past week, though the situation wasn't the greatest, of having Thomas drop in during the midweek of the Kings Royal Double Down Duels Jokers jackpot, and I think we converted him into a sprint car fan, Tom. It's great. Got him to watch High Limit for a night, and he left hooked.
He's a smart guy.
Say, I found it very intriguing, as the formats I think were the most intriguing part to me, about having all the secondary races lead up to kind of the big thing. Versus, you know, like IndyCar, you know, it's just your normal practice qualifying race setup. With F1, like, they introduced the sprint a couple years ago, but it feels so much more complex for something like High Limit, like I saw when I went over to Jacob's house to watch it.
Yeah.
But it's complex in a good way.
Well, yeah, it's the only series I know that qualifies to qualify to race. It's sprint car, national sprint car racing is crazy like that. It's mostly qualifying all day long, and then they finally get to the race, but it works for them. That's what it really does.
Chaotic, and it's chaotic fun.
It is chaos. Yes, it is definitely chaos, and I think that's why it works.
So I will now add to this, Thomas. We'll give you about 30, 45 seconds to kind of paint your background here. As Tom alluded off the top, you're studying at Virginia Tech, sports media and analytics. You've
Yes.
really been the spearhead of our IndyCar and F1 coverage this year in the SWN umbrella. We pulled you in, but what got you started loving the sport the way you do?
Well, I will say, I wouldn't say that, I grew up from, a precocious age where, I'm really into motorsports. It kind of started, a couple years later than that. So it was, around middle school, I was like, oh, I kind of find, the whole race cars thing, I kind of find it a little bit cool. Kind of find it a little bit intriguing. Then, and this is kind of a little bit of a side tangent about how I got into journalism. Junior year, when they have us take the SATs, I'm looking at the sheet, and it has, this sort of, email sign-up list where you can put, oh, what sort of careers are you interested in? At the time, I was working as a math tutor, and I'm like, oh, okay. The journalism part of it sounds kind of fun. I really like writing, but I've never really thought about doing it like that. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to mark it. And then, I go through the whole college registration process. It comes down to UVA and Virginia Tech. I end up deciding to go to Virginia Tech, partially due to the fact that I did not get into UVA, but that's another story for another time. But since then, it's been a great experience being able to write not just on the motorsports side, but also for Virginia Tech. So I write on football, basketball, soccer, softball, baseball. Basically, you name it, I probably have written it. And then in terms of the motorsports side, as you guys have alluded to, I've written on Formula One and IndyCar. Might be dabbling a little bit on the NASCAR side here soon. Maybe. We'll see what Jacob has to say on that.
Well, you never know.
We're trying for some things. We're trying to play for some things.
By the way, let me for everyone associated with Virginia Tech, I apologize. I said Virginia Tech University. So I just want to get out there. My mistake. Sorry, it's just Virginia Tech. Kind of like all you need is Cher or Madonna. All you need is Virginia Tech. There you go, Thomas. All fixed.
Yeah. That was a point of emphasis just now in the chat that we had for it.
All
so
right.
It was actually noted by Jacob and not me.
Yes, Jacob.
Hey,
Jacob's
I beat you to your own point. Yeah.
He's a scholar.
We're gonna spin the scholarly talk to the subject in which Thomas has been following, that being IndyCar, since it's been in the news a few hours before we began taping this show. I'm gonna start with the silly season topic because I'm curious. Thomas's thoughts. Tom, you and I have talked about this a little bit.
Yes.
We talked about on one of our recent shows Scott Dixon being the domino that started the chain. But now the question is, Thomas, where do you go if you're Christian Lundgaard, the most coveted free agent of this year's silly season, who gets jettisoned from Arrow McLaren despite being in the top 5 in points? He has no shortage of options, you would think, but is it as simple as saying the 9-car or bust?
I would say yes, as in it's the one that makes the clearest sense by far, but that's not to say that it's a foregone conclusion that it'll end up there. You look at it and you look at the top 10. Okay, he's 4th in the standings right now. He's got 353 points. He's only 21 back from Malukas, who's in 2nd right now after today's race. He's only 17 behind Kirkwood. That's all good. You look at his top 10 count, it's on par with somebody like O'Ward or Newgarden. It's one ahead of McLaughlin. So he's kind of in that 2nd tier of drivers right now where you've kind of got Palou. Actually, I'll say a 3rd tier. You've got Palou right here. You've got Malukas and Kirkwood kind of right here is the 2A and 2B. And then you've kind of got Lundgaard there in that little small 3rd tier. And the only reason that I think you put him in that 3rd tier is just because the ovals, while they've improved, it's still not exactly where it needs to be compared to his road course prowess. Because when you think Christian Lundgaard, you think, oh man, this is a guy that's really good, when you're not trying to just turn left all the time. That's the main thing that sticks out to me.
Well, here's the interesting thing. When I think about the question Jacob asked, I say, if not him, then who? Because there is not a deep list of top-notch racers that are open for that seat to be filled with. If you look at who's available, and Jacob knows now, and everybody in our audience knows that I look at everything like, players on a draft board for the NFL, right? Who's the best player available? It is Lundgaard. If not Lundgaard, where do you go? Because here's the phrase. The phrase that pays is Chip likes winners. So if not Christian Lundgaard, who steps into that seat that's a proven winner? You're basically down to drivers that could be. I mean, I would love to see Santino Ferrucci in that car, but I'm not 100% convinced that Chip Ganassi would look at him right now as, the guy. So, Jacob, I look at this and say, if not Lundgaard, who? I think the best guy I thought was available is off the market because he stayed with Meyer-Shank.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Marcus
I agree with that. Marcus Armstrong looked to be in the pipeline to be, Ganassi. Okay, maybe he's Dixon's heir apparent when Scott retires, and then Scott leaves, and you think Marcus is the guy, and Marcus stays at Meyer-Shank. So, no, you're right. Lundgaard is by far the top free agent on this board, and Thomas, it's, that, again, path of least resistance, right? I think Lundgaard goes to Ganassi and continues to win some races, but this kind of alludes into one of the other two questions on our board here, especially after a Nashville race where Alex Palou won, despite, I don't think, having the best car at portions of that race.
Doesn't matter anymore.
How do you go to the 9 car and dethrone Alex Palou when it's still his world until somebody actually beats him?
I don't think it's possible. And to go back to Marcus Armstrong real quick, before I pivot to the next subject, I think what some people don't realize when they're looking at Marcus Armstrong is, like, Armstrong did drive with Ganassi back when they had more cars before they were forced to downsize. I would say to some extent I would say that the Meyer-Shank car, like the number 60 or the number 66 or whichever one that you're talking about, it is not on the same par as a Ganassi car. And when you look at who they were picking when they were cutting down their lineup, they chose to not go with Lundqvist, and they chose to not go with Armstrong and keeping them in the main umbrella. So I think that lends a little bit more credence as to why Armstrong didn't jump back up to the main team, because I do think that Lundgaard is the main candidate. If I had to point to a number 2 guy, I think it would be Rinus VeeKay, based on the opinion that he's done a lot more with less. The question then becomes, does he have the sponsorship? Does he have the funding? Can you make the money work? Can you make the cents and dollars work with it? But to touch on your topic, like, it's Alex Palou's world. It is 1,000% Alex Palou's world, and even though it took him a while to win again, like, he just won today at the time that we're recording this, and he's now sitting almost 90 points ahead of the next closest driver.
Tom, as we were putting this show together, I thought, shame on me for thinking, I thought that perhaps the road course finishes he had prior to Nashville, where it appeared there were some chinks in the armor, maybe led to think there were some chinks in the armor. Yeah, Palou shut that right up today. So again, woe is me for thinking. I don't know what you do to stop him now when a couple of 5th place finishes look like maybe somebody can get their foot back in the door. Alex just said, nope, I'm slamming that thing shut.
Well, but the thing is you got to separate reality from fantasy here a little bit, because Alex Palou doesn't need to win every race. He's allowed to have a couple of weaker races because he wins so much that he's got that ground to give, and finishing 5th is not exactly a big time, failure of a day. There's those days when he's mortal, but just like we saw with Joey Logano at North Wilkesboro, Joey basically had run in the back quarter of the field for a lot of the Cup season, and he goes to North Wilkesboro and laps almost everybody in the field. So I don't think we need Alex Palou to win every race. We just need him to be up there enough to keep the momentum going. And it is very much Alex's world, and good for Thomas to come up with Rinus VeeKay. That's an interesting name. I don't know if it's the guy Chip wants. I also know Chip's not afraid to take a chance once in a while, like he did with Juan Pablo in NASCAR. Wouldn't it all surprise me to see him if he got to the point where he for whatever reason couldn't get Lundgaard, which I can't imagine. But somebody like an Enzo Fittipaldi, or even somebody from F2 that might want to come over and race IndyCar. Chip does some crazy things sometimes, so who knows? But I think that's obviously that's the shoe that's got to drop for the rest of it to fall into place the silly season.
Yeah, I'll quickly, by the way, say in regards to Palou's world, he won for the 5th time this season today. He's now won 5 or more times in a year, 3 times in 4 years. The only other drivers to have won 5 times in a single IndyCar season, 3 times or more over the entire history of the sport, AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti, Al Unser, Michael Andretti, and Sebastian Bourdais, who did it during the dying years of Champ Car, but we still count it. That is one hell of a list to be part of if you're Alex Palou, and should speak to just how good he has been over the past half decade. But I digress to the race that happened just before we started taping this show, Tom, and I'll let you go first on this one, because I don't know what the Nashville situation over the last 72 hours should say about Fox and its control in the IndyCar matrix, but they tried to get a World Cup lead in. They delayed the start to a Sunday late afternoon race that should have never been run on Sunday late afternoon. Just my 2 cents. It got lightning delayed and then rained out, pushed to Monday afternoon at 3 o'clock in the heat, and shortened because of said heat. So why did we think that network TV having an equity stake in the series was going to be a good thing here?
Well, the thing that's crazy about this is that the story didn't end there, because they started it at 3 o'clock Eastern time, and at 4 o'clock Eastern, a whole bunch of the local Fox affiliates dumped it for the 4 o'clock news, which is, I mean, it was so much better when I was growing up and we only had news at 6 and 11, right? Like there's news every hour now, it seems like. So, I mean, I can't make sense of this. The thing is, you want the World Cup lead in because you assume that somehow that buys you a whole bunch of new viewers. I doubt it, because I don't think the soccer crowd for the World Cup and the IndyCar crowd are the same at all, but we might have gotten some. But then you delay it an hour because the soccer game ran so long, and then it ends up raining in Nashville because you delayed it an hour. It's raining now, and there's no chance to run it on Sunday. So we get a Monday race, and then instead of starting it at 10 or 11 in the morning and getting it over with when it's still a little bit cooler, no, you wait until 3 o'clock to start it, but then shorten it because it's going to be too hot at 3 to run the full distance. Like, they couldn't have messed this up any worse or made themselves look sillier. And so, yeah, I just, racing, in my opinion, is way too subservient to television right now. And for all that Fox is, as far as, you know, being a third owner of the IndyCar series, they just proved again that they still stink when it comes to programming and their love for the sport. The only thing they care about is the Daytona 500, the Indy 500. That's it.
My thoughts on the matter is, I think whenever you're, and this is regardless of television network, anytime you're scheduling a race on Sunday evening, or like anytime around Sunday evening, I feel like you're kind of playing against yourself a little bit there.
Thank you.
I don't necessarily blame them for trying to maximize and being like, hey, go for the views sort of thing, go for maximum eyeballs if you have a chance. But then, like you were talking about, most of the channels just shaft it for the news. Yeah. So you lose a lot of the punch that you were hoping to get. You're also kind of playing yourself subservient to the game ending on its scheduled time, which it did not. And it goes to extra time.
Yeah.
Which, of course, it does. Yep. And side tangent, the funniest thing about the World Cup game was I saw a tweet on Twitter, well, X, and it was a tweet by Cookie Monster, and it said, for every goal that the team score in this game, I'll eat a cookie. And I made a joke on Twitter that Cookie Monster was starving because there wasn't a goal scored until extra time.
Yeah.
Sure. So I think you're playing yourself into a corner here when it's on Sunday afternoon that late anyways. Sunday, I think it was 5:30 was the original scheduled start time.
Yeah.
At that point, I think you're starting to get a little bit dicey when it's any time that's really after, like, I guess Sunday at 2 or 3.
Yes.
You're kind of playing yourself a little bit in there, especially with the way that summer weather is.
Yes.
Like, I'm in Southwest Virginia in Blacksburg right now, and, like, it rains usually around this time most days. Like, you get it in at 12, you probably avoid the heat. Yeah, you probably end up going head-to-head with the World Cup, but you can host it. I feel like it could have been logistically and feasibly possible to maybe host it on Saturday. I'm not entirely sure what the logistics would have gone into that versus, like, how you move Indy next to cooperate with that. I think that it was possible, just looking at the amount of time and the amount of kowtow that you went with, to give this amount of time space and basically make yourself subservient, I guess, to a certain degree, on the World Cup game and bet, hey, it's going to end on time.
That's true.
It just feels like they played themselves in a corner.
Had it not rained, we were okay. Had it not rained, it would have worked out for them. Okay. But it did rain. And therefore, I say, and then how badly they messed up the whole of today of the Monday thing. I feel like maybe they should hire Cookie Monster to make the programming decisions. It would save them a whole lot of money because you could buy cheap cookies at Food Lion for about $2 a bag.
That'd be great concessions.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, and he couldn't be any worse than the guy that made this set of decisions, because they just messed this up royally. That Nashville race should still be the championship race for the series. It's one of the most exciting races of the year.
And multiple people actually responded to me and my rant on social, at Jacob Seelman77 on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, if you want to go back and see that. But a lot of people came back at me and said, yes, it should have never been off the finale, and I agree with that.
Yes.
That said, we want to say thank you to Thomas for joining us on this show. I wish we had more time. We'll find more time on another show. We're going to step aside, though, take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Tom and I talk Kings Royal and a whole lot more. Stay tuned.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Attention track and series owners. Elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
Welcome back to the Tom Baker Show. We move to sprint car conversation in this segment. Tom, I gotta ask you if you're as impressed as I am with the comeback from injury that Anthony Macri has put together, because since his crash at Williams Grove at the end of April that sidelined him for a second time in about 8 months, he has come back and won 5 of his last 10 made 410 features and 8 in 24 races overall this season, including the $200,000 Kings Royal from this past weekend. The man is on fire, and Posse Country is loving it. And as a fan who loves rivalry in addition to a journalist, I am here for it.
Oh, me too. I think it's great. And, he is certainly on fire right now. You can't diminish anything that he's accomplished. And the fact that the team won an Outlaws race with Casey Kane while he was still on injured reserve. I mean, it's honestly that this whole season for that group has been pretty, roller coaster-esque. And to come all the way back and then grab the King's Royal again is a pretty amazing accomplishment. And he did it in a big way and had to survive a fuel stop with 2 laps to go.
Technically 2 to go. It was after the white.
Yes. But 2 laps from the end to be able to hold off the field and win the race. So I can't say enough about Anthony Macri, and I can't say enough about what the World of Outlaws, what they're putting on the racetrack for a product right now, because it is so competitive. That was a great weekend and so enjoyable from Eldora. The coverage was fantastic.
It was. And Dave Reef is the Dirt Vision studio host. So underrated for what he's done since going back there for his second stint. Them getting him back from the NHRA was a huge coup for dirt racing, and I love what they've done with him. In contrast to Anthony Macri winning, there's always the pain of losing, and I would say even though Rico Abreu finished second, there was no bigger pain than Garrett Williamson, who led the majority of the King's Royal and just missed it right at the end. Anthony drove back by him on lap 38 of what ended up being 41 laps instead of 40. But gosh, I think we all thought it was finally going to be there. Start 150 was going to be the national win that Garrett was looking for. When do you think it's are we on the cusp of a Garrett Williamson Outlaws or High Limit win? And bigger question, do you feel like right now, Buddy Kofoid was the next big thing for a while. Is Garrett Williamson about to be the next big thing, do you think?
Can we just stop anointing people as the next big thing? Because there's a lot of big things that are in national series, and that's just one of those overused things. I mean, Hocevar was the next big thing, and then all of a sudden now everybody hates him again. So that's a barometer that goes up and down by the week. I will say that I think Garrett surely has a long and very, very win-filled career ahead of him, and he's going to get his. This just wasn't his time, and it is a shame to get that close, but he's got plenty of years left, hopefully at least, of competitive racing, and he's going to get his share of wins.
I do believe that. I mean, you don't knock on the door as hard as he's knocked on the door here of late and not kick it down eventually. And I do think once he finally wins one, that could open the door to a string of them for him with how he and Devin Fisher and that whole 23 bunch have been this season. I mean, they've turned into a consistent podium to top 5 threat. It feels like just about every single night, and that's hard to do, especially in your second year on the Outlaws Tour. I think that's what's so remarkable about that whole story for him right now is he's only in the middle of year 2 full-time with the Outlaws, and they're already doing this. I would say he is absolutely ahead of schedule, and it helps when your best friend is Buddy Kofoid, and you can kind of lean on him, go walk over to the other trailer and go, hey, what do I need to be doing better? Because Buddy's not going to mince words.
He's his best friend right now. Once he starts winning, not so much. They'll go fishing.
Maybe not.
When they get to the track, Buddy ain't going to help him as much.
No, for sure. You're not wrong about that. I also want to add to this real quick a debate that I started during pre-race for the King's Royal over the weekend on social, and I feel like it's worth discussing on this show for a second. We all know, those of us that follow sprint cars, that we have the proverbial triple crown of the 3 biggest races in the sport. The King's Royal at Eldora, the Knoxville Nationals, and then the National Open at Williams Grove in Pennsylvania. There are a lot of races, I feel like, clamoring to make this a Grand Slam and be the sport's 4th major. So if we were to make it 4 majors from 3, what race, Tom, right now in the landscape do you consider being that 4th major, if you do?
High Bank National, at Huset's is my 4th, if we must have one. But again, why do we need a fourth one? I mean, I'm okay if somebody makes a fourth one, but I feel like sometimes we just make something into something, and I don't know if it necessarily always earns the right to be something. But I do think the High Bank Nationals at Huset's, I love that place. I love that event. And I think if there is to be a fourth, I think that's it. And I think it probably legitimately can say, at least after this year, that it has earned the right, perhaps, to at least be in the conversation, to become the fourth one on that list.
I add longevity as something to me that constitutes a crown jewel. So I'm not ready to call the High Bank Nationals a crown jewel yet. I think Todd Quiring can make it, 50 years from now and it still be, what it is. But right now, if you're asking me, I pivot between two races. The Tuscarora 50 at Port Royal Speedway in Pennsylvania that has been, almost 60 years now at that racetrack, a major high-paying event that was part of the Outlaws schedule for a long time before High Limit came in, and the Gold Cup Race of Champions, another long-time outlaw race that got poached by High Limit at Silver Dollar Speedway in Chico, California. That, to me, is kind of the West Coast Knoxville Nationals, if you will, and I look at Gold Cup as being the fourth. It just pains me that because High Limit poached it, that we don't get all of the best drivers in the discipline anymore at that race like we did for so long. Oh, by the way, Steve Kinzer was so good at Chico that he won the Gold Cup 12 times. So, I like throwing numbers out there, and Steve really dominated that race for a lot of years. To me, it's Gold Cup, but I think High Bank Nationals can get there. I just want to see it exist 10 years from now in its current form before we start calling it such. Okay. That being said, final break, white flag, last lap. Coming up, we're going to talk more short track racing, including the contrast between the Cars Tour and the IHRA. More after this.
For race fans across the United States, GetInTheStands.com is the place to find racetracks where you live and where you're traveling. Just go to GetInTheStands.com and enter your location. You'll see the tracks within 100 miles of that point, either as a list or on a map. GetInTheStands.com is 100% free to use and mobile friendly. So whether you're on a computer, a tablet, or on your phone, there's no need to download an app. To find racetracks across the United States, open your web browser and head to GetInTheStands.com. GetInTheStands.com, your racetrack directory.
Attention track and series owners. Elevate your fan experience with the TrackTune app. TrackTune works with your PA system. Fans and teams at the track can hear the announcers through their phones, ensuring everyone hears race calls, sponsor plugs, and more during race nights. It's simple to set up, affordable, and free for fans to download and enjoy. Visit tracktune.live for all the details and join tracks nationwide on the app today.
White flag is up as we come back to the Tom Baker Show, and it is the part of the show where I get to throw some bullet points at Tom and go almost a little rapid fire here. We talked about him during the MillerTech Power Performance Award earlier. Caden Honeycutt, Pro late model stock wins at North Wilkesboro. He's swept twice. Nobody else has ever swept in Cars Tour action. What does this say about young Master Honeycutt right now and the Cars Tour competition?
Well, I mean, the Cars Tour competition is phenomenal. It's just that Caden Honeycutt is Caden Honeycutt. I mean, Caden is a seasoned veteran, as young as he is. He wins on both dirt and pavement in multiple kinds of cars. He's in the Truck Series, winning in the Truck Series, wins on road courses, ovals, whatever. And so, I mean, Caden's on a roll right now. And, you know, I don't think it says anything negative about the Cars Tour competition. Caden's just been that darn good lately.
He has been. Now, Cars Tour was also in the news earlier in the week leading up to North Wilkesboro that Speedway Motorsports, otherwise known as the Smith family, Marcus and everyone else, is joining the ownership group of the Cars Tour alongside Dale Earnhardt Jr., Justin Marks, Dale Jr., Jeff Burton. I said Dale Jr. twice. Dale Earnhardt Jr., Justin Marks, Kevin Harvick, and Jeff Burton. There we go. Sorry, Kevin. I wasn't trying to leave you out. Are you encouraged or discouraged by the news of SMI joining that bunch?
Well, I mean, I'm encouraged for the Cars Tour. I mean, it certainly adds a lot of credibility to have that entire organization behind it. It also creates a bit of a step up from Legend Cars to Cars Tour to NASCAR national divisions if somebody has the money and the opportunity and the talent to do it. So yeah, I think it's great for the Cars Tour for sure.
And what, Tom, of the ill-maligned right now IHRA? We got news last week that their remaining Stock Car Series 2026 events are canceled. There's a lot of nerves going around right now about the fate of some of their other purchased properties, like Rockingham Speedway, a few of the drag strips as well. What do we know? What do we think? Can we think anything yet?
I wish I had more time for this, but I'll try to be brief here. So here's what we know. We know that the IHRA has canceled a majority of its national series, its top series. They're still continuing with some of the bracket racing and such, but they have effectively just stopped, like thrown the emergency brake on most of their bigger series. There's a lot of speculation going around. Now, I have spoken with some sources very close to the series, and I'm going to be very measured in what I say here because it's important that I am. But here's what I can tell you. For all of those people who think that Daryl Cuddle's going to build data centers, no, not happening. He didn't go through all this as a charade just to build data centers. For those who think that there was no funding or not enough funding when all of this started, no, that's also not true. Okay, now, I can put it in a way that I think will make sense to most of you who own a business. And even if you think about your own personal budget, okay, we make decisions every day based on things we know, things that are available, things that we see that are going to be available, things that are told to us are going to happen. We make decisions every day based on the factors that we have and the landscape that we have around us. And it feels like what's happened is something has changed just recently to where that picture is different now. Okay, and so I'm going to leave that at that and say that I can tell you for sure, 100%, that everything that was done by Daryl Cuddle and by his team, okay, was done in good faith with the right motive, and that I can also tell you 100% that right now it would still be Daryl Cuddle's intention to try and put this back where it needs to be in 2027. We're a long way from anything final or, anything that's just, it's done, it's over with. We're a long way from that. I can tell you that. We might get to that point. I can also tell you that the idea that a stock car series might come back that looks very much like IHRA in 2027 is already being discussed. And we'll end the show there. Stay tuned. So long, folks.